Hello, I'm Nelson Ford with the Gunsmith in Phoenix, Arizona, and we're going to talk about the Ruger Marks today. And they were where Ruger started. Um, so let's just start right at the beginning. Bill Ruger had the idea with the simple looking gun, and if you ask me, it looks like Buck Rogers. He probably learned a lot because he worked at the Thompson Submachine Gun Company, the Auto Ordnance Company, during World War II. And the Thompson was superseded by the grease gun, where they used two pressed pieces of metal, stamped pieces of metal, put them together, welded it, stuck a barrel on it, and put a bolt in a tube, and made the grease gun for, I think, a fifth of the price of the Thompson. Thompson, even when they got it down cheap, it was still expensive, and the grease gun was terribly inexpensive. And I'm sorry I don't have the figures for you, but it was I think it was 1/5 the price of the Thompson after they went from the 1921-28 style drum, top bolt, finned barrel, compensator, detachable stock. They went to the side cocker, no detachable stock, no fins on the barrel, no compensator, stick magazines only. They were trying to make it as cheap as they could, and the two stamped steel sides welded together with a barrel on them and a bolt going down the tube was much cheaper. And he made this design up, which is that's how they did it. They put two sides together and torched them, and they stuck a barrel and a tube on it with a bolt in it. And I think it looks like Buck Rogers. This 1949, Bill Ruger had this idea for this gun. And I don't know all the facts, and I don't know them all perfectly, but I do know that he had a friend named Alex Sturm, hence Sturm Ruger. And he presented Alex with this idea for an investment to make these guns, to make some money. And Alex had some family money that he was able to, if he wanted to, invest with Bill Ruger. And he had a buddy that was Norwick Goodspeed, that was an attorney and friend. And he asked him for advice. And Norwick looked at the gun, Mr. Goodspeed, excuse me, and said, I like the gun, I'd like to meet the man. And when he met Bill Ruger, he says he was impressed, and that he sounded like a trusting man, and that he thought that an investment in this gun with Bill Ruger was a sound way to go. And so he took $50,000 of family money, and that's probably like $500,000 today in 1949 money, maybe more. And he invested in the company, and they ran out of money. And then I think they didn't realize how many orders they had. The post office was holding bins of letters with requests for guns, and they realized that they had done a great job with the manufacturing and the sales of them. By 1951, 2 years later, unfortunately, Alex Sturm died of a disease, and I think Norwick Goodspeed, who is also an advisor with the company, just stepped back and said, Bill, it's all you now. And today it's a $6 million company. $600 million company. I'm sorry. And so, at any rate, we're going to start with the earliest gun. And there's a little bit of a story behind it, and that's what makes them fun. My brother-in-law got this gun from his uncle in Vermont, Uncle Chris in Vermont. And when Alex Sturm died, Bill Ruger took the crest that Alex secured for him. It was it's a red eagle. I can't remember what they call it, but the crest he made for the grip on the gun. They only had it on one side, the left side, is a red eagle. And I think Phoenix uses the same thing, the same eagle Fire Eagle, something raised from the ashes, the Phoenix. At any rate, um, when Alex died, Bill turned the Eagle to black, and they made a commemorative 2 years ago, the 75th year commemorative. They made this 6 3/4 inch barrel target gun just like this. This is a target, not a standard, because you can see the sights. And my brother-in-law was going to go out and buy one because he thought it what a great idea. They made one with the red eagle and everything, the red Phoenix. And he said, I think I have one of these. So he went into his safe and he was digging around, and this has happened to everyone when you're in the business too long. And he found this gun and he looked it up. This is what he got from his Uncle Chris. And he looked it up, and it's a 1951. And beyond that, 51 was the first year for the target. They made the standard model without the big target sights the first 2 years. And in 51, they came out with the target model. This is in the first 100 target models. And the red is so faded, but if you look close, and we'll get you a good picture, you can see it's still there. And he found this in his safe, and it just about killed him. I'm sure he called his uncle and said, you gave me a 1951 Ruger target, Mark I. And so here's one sitting right in front of you, the real deal that they copied a couple of years ago for the 75th. Anyway, it's got good stories with it. Great gun. It's my brother-in-law. He's a great guy. He drove down here with it, so I could use this in my Ruger Mark I or Ruger Mark display. We have another Mark I here, or a target. This is a 1965. And a good friend of the family named Richard met Bill Ruger at the auto ordnance plant. And he was actually head of security, Richard was, and Bill Ruger worked under him. And they became very good friends during World War II working at the plant. Because, of course, after World War II, they shut it down. And they became close friends. And in fact, Bill Ruger has called a member of my family and talked to her on the phone for a couple of hours before, reminiscing about Richard and the time they had at the plant. And this is a 1965, and I think somewhere around that time, I was only 9, he gave this gun to Richard. And it's been in the family ever since. It has this comp on it, and there were 2 of them. One said Sturm Ruger and Company on the bottom, and the other one said Sturm Ruger Incorporated, and that was the last of them, and they stopped making the compensator shortly thereafter. This is also a 6 3/4 target barrel, but you had to have somebody put on the comp because the comps on the guns didn't fit in the box. And so you may have the comp in the box with your gun if you ordered a comp with it or got one later online. Not online then. But you had to have it installed yourself because they didn't fit on the guns in the box. And I thought that was a really interesting thing to learn about it. But that's a great permutation of the Mark I target. So there's 2 Mark I targets, a 51 and a 65. Great stuff. The Mark II, this is a bull barrel Mark II, still has the Luger type grip, they called it, with the heavy barrel, the targets. The Mark II had a slide stop on it, right here, and you could lock your slide would lock back after the last shot, and I thought that was the best permutation. The Mark II started in 1982, so they ran the Mark I's from 1949 to 1981, long run. In 82, they still produced some of them because it was a 33-year run, a long run. They made 2 million of these things. And the Mark II's had the slide stop, and I really like that because I like the slide stop. They did do one thing, a little change. They moved the magazine button to the other side, but they were kind enough to leave an opening on both sides, so you could push down on this, um, pull your stop out, and switch it to the other side if your gun had the track on the opposite side. So you could make the new magazines on the Mark IIs work in the Mark I's or the Mark IIs. And I thought that was forward thinking. Um, but the Mark IIs were my favorite because when you get to the Mark IIIs, um, they went with the 2245 grip. Um, in other words, the guys that like the 1911s, lovable gun, could have a gun with the same grip and practice with a 22. They also did other things, a live round indicator, and the thing I guess it's really a good thing to do. They moved the magazine release up to where your thumb could get it rather than the claw on the bottom. And I guess that's a really good thing. Traditionalists don't like to see change, and sometimes it's fun to see the old stuff. Uh, but the Mark IIIs did that. They did. I think they dropped the magazine disconnect in them too. Nope, this one still works. So it's the Mark IV with the hinge. They had a hinge model, the Mark IV. I don't have any of those here. But the Mark IIIs came out with the 1911 grip, and they also came out with the ultra lightweight. And these were set up for red dots, and they're so light. These are aluminum top ends. Really cool stuff. So I should probably pick up this Ruger Mark I here, and most people will look at it and say, hey, that's a stainless one. They never made any stainless Mark I's. They didn't start with the stainless until Mark II's after 1982. And so this gun was nickel plated. But that's an interesting thing to note. The minute I saw, these are later grips, but the minute I saw that, I thought, this is not a stainless gun. It also doesn't have that gray color. It has that gold, silver color. You can always tell nickel, it's got sort of a gold tone to it. But that's a neat little Buck Rogers looking gun. This gun, in 1983, a friend of mine named Tom Burton, who had Burton Sign Company, talked me into going into Class 3 items. He talked me into converting my AR-15 to full auto, which anybody could do before 1986. So, no internet, no kiosks, but you had to drive down and get the paperwork from the ATF building for conversions or any class 3 items, Form 4s, Form 1s, etc. And then you filled them out, and then you had to get print cards. And I had to go down to the courthouse. I had to go into where they fingerprint you. And today they have a kiosk and everything goes through the internet and blah, blah, blah. In 1983, computers weren't going to come around for civilian use for another 10 or 12 years, at least. And so I had to go into where the detectives had handcuffs going from them to people they were booking. And we were all sitting down in this room taking our turns getting fingerprinted. And some of the guys sitting there on the benches looked over at me and said, what are you in for? Or what are you here for? And I said, I'm getting fingerprint cards. They said, well, we all are. And they said, what did you do? And I said, well, I want to convert my gun to full auto. And they said, oh, really? You can do that? And I said, yes, you can. And if you didn't know somebody in the business that was into Class 3 stuff, it was almost a secret because there was no internet. People couldn't just go find out all these things. And so I got my fingerprint cards and I mailed them in with a check for $200. And in 30 days, I got a piece of paper back. This suppressor, this is such a wonderful story. Timothy Gerency was manufacturing. He manufactured my AR-15 suppressor as well, but he manufactured these suppressors. He was a drag racer. He had a drag car, and that's what he did normally. But he was a machinist and liked guns, so he knew how the paperwork worked. He manufactured these things, and Tom Burton put me on to him, and he said, you got to get one of these. They're so cool. And this is not modern. This is old style. So you're probably wondering why there's a chore boy pad right here. You can buy this at your local grocery store. 3 of them for a couple bucks. This tube slides off and the barrel is only this long. And the barrel is reduced to about this size, maybe less than a ½ inch. And the holes turn with the rifling. There are 4 holes. You drill and then you turn and drill. So you're with the rifling. There are 4 holes every ½ inch. And the barrel comes to here. Then there's a series of discs and you put a rubber wipe at the end. And so there's a screw at the bottom. You slide the tube off, and all the chore boys all messed up from you shooting 500 rounds through it. And you cut it up and you stuff fresh chore boy in it, put a fresh wipe on it, slide it back on, and you're good to go. But I've been at the grocery store and had a lady say I got a couple of packs of these, and she said, "Looks like you're going to be doing some scrubbing." And I said, "No, I'm going to rebuild my silencer." And she almost turned colors. This Mark III with the suppressor has a Tactical Innovations from Idaho on it. And so this is a much more modern type of suppressor, and it's probably quieter. And I think a lot of these more modern ones, if some people spray oil in there, and there's other things you can do. But it's quite an arraignment of guns if you guys have any questions on them. Taking apart the back straps, I should probably talk about that just for a minute. People will try to take them apart without dropping the hammer first. And so the first thing you do is you drop your magazine out. You clear the gun, you pull the trigger, and now you take your screwdriver underneath here and you pull up and you can take your mainspring assembly out, and it's got the extension that goes through the receiver. And that comes right out and the bolt pulls out, and then you can tap your receiver and the top end comes out. And then you just go back in the reverse mode. You have to have the hammer down. And people try to put these on without the hammer down. And then it's a trick. You have to put this part in first, and then you have to look to see where your tail of your hammer is, and you make sure your hammer's forward, and then you can slowly put it in there and snap it in place. If you watch a few YouTubes, you can probably do it without any trouble. But they're really great guns. The tilt ones make it easier for more people, and if it makes more people want to shoot them and have fun with them, that's great. There's all kinds of kits you can drop in them, but you can actually get trigger pulls with them. At one time, J&G Sales had 50-gallon drums full of the standards like this with the 4-inch barrels, and I think they were $39 or $49 a piece. A new one was under $200. And this is back in 1980, 81, 82. And I went up there and I bought 5 of them for $250 or $300, and I brought them back and I re-blued them because I had bluing tanks, and I put a gold bead on the front sight and adjusted the trigger pull, and I made grips for them. They're the easiest gun in the world to make grips for. Flat side, holes and screws. Can't get any easier. And I just got some thin walnut, made a number of pairs of grips. And I put them in my case when I used to sell guns for $1.99. And I actually have the ad that I ran in the Phoenix newspaper. We used to be able to run ads in the paper to sell guns and buy them. And people would look in the Phoenix ads under sporting goods. Can't remember the designation or the number. The firearms were under sporting goods, and it practically covered everything. I mean, there's 200 guns in there every Sunday. And so lots of good fun was had with the newspaper, but that's long gone. I bought my first Remington 870s for under $200 out of the Phoenix paper. But great stuff. You know where they came from now. You know where Bill Ruger got the money, and he turned a $50,000 investment from a good friend into a $600 million company. And I think his family is carrying on the tradition. I don't have a number 4 here. I wish I did. The hinge guns are pretty cool, but I would rather have these old traditional types and some of these suppressed and we have a lightweight that's as fresh as new as we get here. And there's some cool old ammo that you can look at. There's some Remington Mohawks, the Federal Lightnings, and the Winchester Wildcats. All good stuff. And I love this Federal Power Flight. It's got a picture of a skunk on the side of it. I don't think you could do that today and put them in the store, but I think it's pretty much fun. So ask me some questions, and we'll have fun with Q&As. Have a nice night.